Hello, my name is Mahfouz Safada, and I will be tackling issues regarding denialism.
What is denialism?
Denialism is when you reject the truth and evidence that point to a certain cause or event.
What are some examples of denialism through history?
There are many people that believe that the Holocaust didn't actually happen, and their reasoning behind this points to the falsehood in the numbers of fatalities and the rejection of the existence of gas chambers.
In just the last 6 months, 15 college newspapers across the country have run advertisements that call for a, quote, open debate of the Holocaust, unquote. The ad claims that the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. has no proof whatever of homicidal gassing chambers, and no proof that even one individual was gassed in a German program of genocide. The ads have caused an uproar everywhere, sparking protests from students and boycotts of the papers. The man who placed all the ads, Bradley Smith, has been called anti-Semitic and a neo-Nazi because of the challenges of the Holocaust. Smith claims he simply wants the truth to be told, that Jews were never placed in gas chambers, and that the figure of 6 million Jewish deaths is an irresponsible exaggeration. And he's not alone in his beliefs. A recent poll by the Roper Organization found that 22% of all Americans believe it's possible the Holocaust never happened. Another 12% say they don't know.
At one point, I came here for one reason, to tell the world that this Holocaust happened, and I'm a proof. I'm a living proof. I'm here to tell you that never again, we should watch out for another Holocaust. To whom it ever happened, it should never happen. No race, no human should have to kill.
The arguments that denialists use.
They use information that haven't aged well and evidence that don't exactly tackle the entire subject. And sometimes they use information that are completely false, or that they believe is true.
It's falsehood. For instance, this issue about this man Leuchter, Frank Leuchter Jr., who I just heard quoted as a foremost engineer, with gas chambers.
I didn't say the word engineer.
Okay. You noticed this.
I know why you didn't.
Okay.
But Fred Leuchter might not have been a licensed engineer, but did he not have the job of building gas chambers and other execution equipment for major American prisons? Was he not profiled on primetime live in the Atlantic Monthly as an expert?
No.
But David, let him finish.
As a matter of fact, this is a lie. The fact is the man masqueraded as an engineer, a builder of these chambers, and then he was arraigned in Massachusetts for practicing engineering without a license. He is not registered as an engineer. The only scientific training he ever had was a BA in history.
But one of the tactics that all of these fringe groups do to try to move into the mainstream is to focus on what we don't know about some particular subject and ignore all the evidence that we do have. For example, why do we have so many huge orders of Zyklon B? Why do we have, for example, some of these pictures?
The poison gas that was used.
Why do we have huge blowers to re-aerate the chambers if all you're doing is delousing clothing?
On these reports that I'm not sure were ever encoded in granite, and suggesting that because there was some hyperbole with regard to lampshades, that therefore the whole story of
that's right. That's called the slippery slope argument. If this is wrong, then maybe this is wrong, then maybe this is wrong. Hey, maybe the whole thing didn't happen.
Revisionists say three essential things. We say, first and foremost, there was no policy or program to exterminate the Jews of Europe during the Second World War.
Okay, so now stop right there for a second. Don't go too quick, which refutes exactly what the gentleman just asked you, because he said that the policy was they were picked out and isolated to be annihilated.
That's certainly true.
You're saying that's not true?
No, they were selectively persecuted. They were picked out. They were put in ghettos.
Example of denialism.
One such example is the rejection of the fact that there are Muslim Uyghurs in China that are being detained in concentration camps.
Genocide denial right now currently involve the Uyghur Muslims. With what Mahfouz has said, originally it involved denial that there was concentration camps. Now, once evidence come out, they keep on trying to move the goalposts. Now they're saying they're not 1 million Uyghurs and other Turkic minorities being in concentration camps, or that they're not an intentional program to exterminate the Uyghur culture. What are the dangers to denialism?
They can spread false information to the media of which people feed off of, and they can create their own followers, their own false followers that believe false information.
Malcolm Muggeridge arrived in the USSR in 1932. He was one of the very few journalists to report on the real conditions in the countryside. For every article on the famine that appeared, 2 were published denying its existence.
In 1932, Stalin takes the ultimate revenge on those who dared oppose him. Because Stalin controls all food distribution, he can cut off food supplies and starve entire regions. Because he controls all travel with internal passports, his secret police can force starving millions to remain within the devastated lands. Grain elevators stand full, but grain rots on the ground as Stalin refuses to distribute food. The powerless people can do nothing to stop their master. Catastrophe strikes and lasts for 2 endless years. Spies watch for anyone trying to take grain from the fields. Anyone caught hiding food is executed. Desperate families resort to cannibalism. Meanwhile, the New York Times Pulitzer Prize-winning Moscow correspondent Walter Duranty assures the world that there is no famine. And Stalin dupes the world by actually increasing the amount of grain exported from the Soviet Union. The United States and the League of Nations embrace and recognize the prosperous Soviet Union. From Moscow, Times reporter Duranty secretly confides the truth to Western governments, that as many as 10 million defenseless lives have been wiped out, with politically engineered starvation as the murder weapon.
How can we better teach young people about denialism?
We can start by listing examples of what denialism can do to people and how it can affect future generations and the past.
90% of Rwanda's population belongs to the Hutu tribe. About 9% are Tutsi. The tribes often intermarry, but rivalries have simmered, especially since Belgian colonial rulers in the early 20th century gave political authority to the Tutsi minority. By 1994, a Hutu regime has been in power for many years. Some Tutsis have threatened rebellion, and the government has responded by calling all Tutsis rebels. The government has fueled a campaign of hate, preaching violence against Tutsis. State-controlled radio stations call for the extermination of the Tutsi. And in April, it begins. The grave is only half full, one radio station declares. Who will help us to fill it? Thousands of murderers help in an unspeakable frenzy that lasts 100 days. Governors check national ID cards. Unarmed, defenseless people whose cards identify them as Tutsi are slaughtered, man, woman, and child. Merely to be who you are is punishable by death.
March 1992, Yugoslavia was already breaking up along ethnic lines when Bosnia-Herzegovina declared independence. Bosnia's Serbs, Orthodox Christians, wanted their own state, and they went to war for it. Their principal victims were Bosnia's Muslim population. The Bosnian Serbs attacked parts of the capital, Sarajevo, to force the Muslims out. They destroyed mosques, they burned books, and they systematically raped Muslim women and girls. In July 1992, reporters learned about Serb concentration camps in Bosnia. Muslim prisoners were tortured, sexually mutilated, and executed. These images hadn't been seen in Europe since the Holocaust. In prime time, they stirred U.S. public opinion, but not enough to change U.S. policy.
We are not going to get bogged down in some guerrilla warfare.
Yeah, I would like to make one point. I came here for one reason, to tell the world that this Holocaust happened, and I'm a proof, I'm a living proof. I'm here to tell you that never again should watch out for another Holocaust to whom it ever happened. It should never happen. No race, no human should have to kill people.